Gen Con 2014, Mark Arnaudo and Joel Eddy at the booth of GCT Games. We're here with Gordon, the designer of a new game that is going to be out later this year, or at least the Kickstarter is going to be out soon, in September probably. The game is called Rise of the Kage, and Gordon has agreed to sit down with us and to tell us a little bit about the game. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you very much for your time, guys. Okay, so Rise of the Kage is a spin-off from Bushido set in the Jewa Isles, which is our miniatures-based game. And in this incarnation of it, the 2 to 4 player game, board-based, and the ninjas essentially are trying to infiltrate the mansion and achieve their mission. Their mission is randomly selected from a deck of cards. In the final version there'll be 12 missions and they range from stealing something to assassinating to kidnapping, etc. So when the ninja player draws these cards, the guard player is unaware of what their mission is, so it's a kept secret from it. It's 2 to 4 players, as I said, so one player always plays the guard player, and between 2 and 3 play ninjas. So if there's 2 players, one player will play 3 ninjas. There's always 3 ninjas in the game. So the deployment, as you can see in the board, is determined by the guard player, and he has a number of search locations. Which are these markers here, which indicate areas that the ninja is going to infiltrate and search, basically to see if they've acquired their objective. Essentially, the guard player is trying to harry them, stop them achieving that objective, and they do it through a couple of measures. When the ninjas create any noise, there's a marker that moves up on the boss's map, which allows the guard player to be more responsive to the more noise the ninjas make.
This is the ninjas? No, this is the guards. The guards,
yeah,
okay.
These are the 3 ninja maps over on this side, yeah. So they each have a unique individual profile, the ninjas. So the guard, as this moves up, if it gets to the end and rings the bell, the ninja players lose the game, the guard player obviously wins it. There's also a turn tracker, which moves up every time the guard player has a turn. Again, if it reaches daybreak, the ninja players lose their mission and they found out. So the game mechanic is a combination of cards and dice rolling. The ninjas always have the first round of the game. So after the guard player has set the board up and laid the appropriate number of tokens, which is dictated by the map being played, he then has a number of guards, which are these guys here, and he has access to 3 variant types of guards on different levels, so 1 to 3. He can then place the assigned number of guards by the boss. In this case, he has 10 guards to place to defend the mansion at the start of the game. He also has 2 barrack markers, which essentially are his respawning markers, so that's where he'll be able to recruit additional guards through the duration of the game. The ninjas always have the first turn, as I said, and they each place an infiltration marker. On the back of these, for the review here, I'll tell you there is a number. The ninja player doesn't know what that number is when they place them, so they're randomly placed around the perimeter of the board. So the only restrictions in placing these is that they are 12 squares apart. The ninja player then, between them, cooperatively, decide and lay out a course for each individual ninja. So in this case, Suzuki here is going to walk around this area here and try into the door. Once all the ninjas have placed their markers, there's an initiative roll. As I said, it's cooperatively, and so the ninjas occasionally have to work together in order to achieve it. So, for argument's sake, because Simo here is a combat-orientated guy, so he's not very quiet. And obviously, you don't want to create noise being ninjas, so you might have to rely on one of the others to do the more stealth elements of it, and he would come up. You can throw a little bit of a spanner in the works in that there's an initiative roll, so even though you plan what you're going to do cooperatively, the initiative roll will decide essentially in which order the ninjas activate. So in this case he has a 4, there is a modifier to that, which is this boot symbol at the end, so his initiative would be 6. The other ninja would roll, and as you can see they're slightly different, so his is a -1, so that would be a 2, and so on. Once all the initiatives have decided, the ninjas have the opportunity to move, and as long as they don't encounter a guard's area of influence, they're free to move along the route they've previously laid out. If they come across a door or a guard's area of influence, the guard's area of influence is dictated on the guard cards that are assigned to those guards. So this mark symbol here tells me that their area of influence is only 1. So they only have impact on 1 square around them. So when they start, they're in an unalerted state, which means their area of influence only extends to the front and sides. If for some reason they become alerted to the ninja's presence, their area of influence will be 360 degrees around them. So if a ninja wants to do anything within an area of influence, they need to do it stealthily, or else they create noise markers. So as an example here, she wants to open this door. She would have to try to do it quietly. In order to do that, she would have to open the door, and she would use a black dice from her available dice pool, which is determined by the different ninjas. Target number to open a door is always 5 for a solid door, so she can roll 1 black dice, but she can support it with as many as her dice as she chooses to roll. So in this case, she wants to be sure she opens it. She rolled 2 dice as an example. So neither of them were a 5, which means she shouldn't open the door. But because she's stealthy, she gets a bonus to her stealth. So +2, so that would be a 6. So at least one of them's a 5. She manages to open the door quietly. Because she opened the door quietly, she hasn't alerted the guard. Had she failed that roll, because the noise would have been created where the door was, it would have been in the area of influence of the guard would have been alerted, and he would have got a noise token, which the guard can then use in the following turn. So in this case, she succeeded, so there was no noise marker. She wants to now move into his area of influence. Again, she's going to have to do a stealth test. Again, this is on the guard's area of influence. So in this case, a 1, which is always a failure in the game. So it cannot be modified above that. So in this case, she's failed it. The consequence of that is that the guard has now become alerted, and she has become detected. So we use these markers to signify that they marked and detected. Now the consequences of that is that any dice roll she makes are going to be at -1 now, and any dice the guard makes, because he's alerted, is going to be at +1. Because she still has a combat dice left, she can choose to try assassinate the guard if she chooses. In this case, it's obviously beneficial for her because she's got no more movement left, so she can't escape from him. So she rolls her attack dice. It's against the defense of the particular guard she's fighting. In this case, it's 2, and she's going to lose -1 to this because she's detected. So she gets a 5, -1 is 4, so it's still enough to kill the guard. But because she only rolled a combat dice and didn't roll a stealth dice, she's now created a noise marker, which would go onto the guard's card here. As well as that is the noise tracker would move up 1 stage. The guard is removed from play as he's been killed. The other cards, now that she's finished her move action, her actions will be done, and we would move through the initiative order that the other ninja players had rolled, and they would fulfill their actions in the same way. Once the ninja players have all had their actions, it comes to the guard player for his first turn. So the first turn he does is he moves his marker. He then consults at what level the noise marker's at. In this case, it's still in the yellow. That means he has 6 action markers. So the action marker is what he uses to activate his guards, or to attack the ninjas, attempt to detect them, etc. So with my 6 markers, I get an additional 5 cards as well, which is again dictated by the boss in play. So these cards allow me to do additional things. So for argument's sake, as this one's drawn here, I can reduce the ninja's defense if I play this card. I can play as many cards as I have slots on my boss mat. So I could play 5 cards on this boss as an example. If I don't play all of them in my turn, I can play cards in response to a ninja's action in the next ninja's turn, as long as I have slots available on the card to do so. So we'll have a look at the guards now. So at level 1, the guard stat. So for 1 action point, I could move this guard 2 squares. I can attack a ninja if I'm in an adjacent square to it, but I'll get no bonus to it. Yeah. My defense is 2, my area of influence is 1, my awareness is 2. Now my awareness is when I'm trying to detect them, that's how many dice I'm going to roll. And this one here, which is crucial, is the number of actions I can spend on this guard type. So this is a 2. So for argument's sake, I could spend an action on this guard and declare a move with him, which is 2. That would cost me 1 of my action points, which I remove from the pool. I could activate him again if I choose to, because he's got access to 2 actions. So I could go to there. Now I'm adjacent to a ninja that is detected, I can make an attack. If she hadn't been detected, I would have to first attempt to detect her, which would be an action. Now, since my guard's already done his 2 actions, in theory I shouldn't be able to activate him again. But because I have access to a noise token in my pool, I can supersede that and I can use noise tokens to override the number of the limit on the actions that the guy has. So in this case, I'm going to make an attack on the ninja because I've got a noise token. To do that, I roll a d6, and the target number will be the ninja's defense value. In this case, 4. I have to exceed that, equal or exceed it. In this case, a 1. As I said, it's always a failure, so I don't succeed. Now that I have no noise tokens left, I cannot activate that guard any further, so I'd have to move on to another guard. At the end of the guard turn, I can spend these action points to recruit more guards, which is shown on the guard's cost here. So in this case, I could recruit a level 1 guard for 1 point. I can only recruit the guards in lower than the alert level I am. So when I hit the orange level, I'll be able to recruit better guards, and then when I hit the red level, we'll be able to recruit retainers, which are the elite guards. Once the ninjas get into the red level, it's quite dangerous for them because these guys are, you know, quite easy to dispatch the ninjas. So you want to avoid making noise, essentially, at the base of the game. Once the guard player has finished his actions and done his recruiting, the ninjas will have their actions and they will do the same. So in turn 2, I'm just going to move in there for ease of this demonstration. She would assign her motions again, and as I said, from the tokens, essentially she's trying to search and find her mission, which would have been drawn at the beginning of the game. So in turn 2, she could move across her track and she would interact with these search locations. Again, it would be sorry, I forgot something crucial there. There's that. At the beginning of the ninja stage, the dice pool replenishes for each ninja. Yeah. So she would search that. She would again have to do a stealth test. 10, so she got a 6, which exceeds that number, which means she would collect that token. Once she has 4 or more tokens in the ninja players, they start rolling against the difficulty of the mission, which would have been predetermined when they drew the card out. When they exceed the mission value, it means they've successfully found what they're looking for or found the person they're looking for. Now, depending on what the mission was, they might have to have assassinated the boss, in which case the boss model would be placed on the board, and they would then have to have a combat with the boss model. If they're stealing something, they would take the item location. Some of the missions, they then have to exit the board, and some of the missions they don't. So if they've achieved their objective, they win the mission. If they have to exit, which would be explained on the mission cards, they would then draw an escape card, which would say, in this case it's a 2, they need to escape via the town. We would turn these over, and as it turns out that's 2, but we'd turn them all over, and whichever one corresponded to the card, the ninjas would then have to exit the board from that location. When the ninjas take wounds, they lose their dice pool and obviously become more ineffective. So essentially, as they sustain more and more wounds, the markers would get moved up. Once the last dice is done, they are killed. When they replenish their dice, obviously if there's a wound marker there, they don't replenish that dice. So that's pretty much in a nutshell the game mechanic. As I said, there's 12 variant missions. There'll be a double-sided board to add variety to it as well.
Double-sided board, you say?
Yes, that's the intention, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem at all, thank you.
There is another stealthy figure that I want to acknowledge, which is Joel. Hi, Joel.
Hello.
As for the stealthy game, this is Rise of the Kage, the Stealth Ninja Miniatures board game, which is going to be on Kickstarter soon. And this was Gordon, the designer, telling us about his new game. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you very much, you guys. Thanks.